In the 2nd millennium BC, Canaan was inhabited by various tribes, each with its own patron god. These gods belonged to the Canaanite pantheon, which included the god El, Baal, and Yahweh, which all appear in the Bible. In time, the Israelites came to believe that they were not of Canaanite origin. Yet archaeological remains and linguistic and religious comparisons from 1200 to 1000 BC indicate that Israel formed within the Canaanite culture. In all these domains, there's just too big of an overlap, often to the point where they are indistinguishable. Yet Israel in time did break itself off from the other Canaanites, at least by 1208 BC, because both Canaan and Israel are mentioned as separate entities on the stele by Pharaoh Nermeptah. In a longer text celebrating Egypt's victory over its neighbors, we read the sentences, "Plundered is the Canaan," and also, "Israel is laid waste." Interestingly, the hieroglyphs used to denote Canaan signify that it is a land, while the glyph for Israel denotes that it is a people. The original god of the tribe of Israel seems to have been El, and there are a couple pieces of evidence for this. For one, even the word Israel itself means El rules. We get another clue by studying the different authors of the Bible, which were identified in the 19th century, because these authors used Hebrew from different historical periods. And these authors are now called the E, the J, and the P sources, and much more on them in the next lecture. In Genesis, source P and source E call God by the name El from the beginning, all the way up to the point where God reveals himself as Yahweh to Moses. We read, "I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. But by my name Yahweh, I did not make myself known to them." So here that name switch was incorporated into the story. Thirdly, 17 characters in Genesis have names compounded with El, such as Bethel, while there are no names that contain Yahweh. And interestingly, there is also one name compounded with Baal, namely Benjamin's son, Ashbal, which is curious since Baal would later be recognized as one of the false gods by the Israelis. We know about the Canaanite pantheon mainly from a number of texts on clay tablets from the 13th to 12th century BC, found in the city of Urugit in northern Syria. Among these texts we have found the Baal cycle, which describes a myth about the thunder god Baal. In the most memorable part of the Baal cycle, Baal was killed by Mot, the god of death, and then descended into the underworld. Being a weather god, the death of Baal was interpreted as the start of the summer drought season. And El, we read, the father of both Baal and Mot, mourned his death. The goddess Anat, Baal's sister, eventually found his body and buried him, and then went on to kill Mot in order to release Baal from the underworld. And interestingly, the killing of Mot was stated in agricultural terms. We read, "With a sword she splits him, with a sieve she winnows him, with a fire she burns him, with millstones she grinds him, in a field she sows him." Then we read, El had a dream in which the heavens rained down, which meant that Baal, the god of rain, had resurrected. Anat then found him, and he returned to his throne in his beautiful palace. In the text from Ugarit, we also read that the highest god El was married to the goddess Asherah, and that their children included the gods of the morning star, the evening star, the sun, and the moon. In some cases, Baal was also mentioned as one of their children. Other evidence from this pantheon comes from late 9th century BC potsherds found in the Sinai Peninsula. On one of the potsherds, we read, "Yahweh of Samaria and his Asherah," suggesting that the goddess was instead married to Yahweh. And quite shockingly, as you can see, there's even a picture that goes with this couple. Traces of these past polytheistic beliefs are also found in the Bible itself. In several passages, El is described as being the leader in a council of gods. These quotes seem to stem from a time before Judaism became monotheistic. For instance, we read, "For who in the skies above can compare with the Lord? Who is like the Lord among the heavenly beings? In the council of the holy ones, El is greatly feared. He is more awesome than all who surround him." And also, Elohim, also containing El, presides in the great assembly. He renders judgment among the gods. There's also a verse in which we read that El, here seen as a god of the entire earth, divided up the nations of the world among his sons, giving Israel to his son Yahweh. So here El and Yahweh have not just fused into the same God. We read, "When Elyon allotted the nations for inheritance, when he divided up humanity, he fixed the boundaries for people, according to the number of divine sons. For Yahweh's portion is his people, Jacob his own inheritance." And that is about what we know about the origin of Yahweh.